Now it's my pleasure to introduce your presenter today, Dick Orlando. Dick Orlando is President and CMO of LeveragePoint. He has held multiple senior leadership positions at high technology companies, and his primary areas of expertise are in sales and marketing, operations, and building enterprise sales teams to drive new business. Mr. Orlando holds a BA in Business Management from Northeastern University. So with that, Dick, welcome.
Thank you, Taylor, and thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, especially at the end of the fiscal year for most companies. However, December is always a good month for sales and marketing leaders that I know to reflect on the past fiscal year. What went well, what didn't go well. And when things that went right, you want to keep the momentum positive. If you're selling new accounts and it's working, you want to keep doing the positive things, but you also have an opportunity to reflect on what new things you can test during the year, as presentation tools are always evolving. The problem comes in is what went wrong. Maybe you didn't achieve the revenue numbers, maybe the discounts were too high, maybe the pipeline wasn't big enough. And December is a good time to make some changes. Because if you keep doing the same things that you did in the past, sales and marketing leaders know you'll get the same results. Today's topic was purposely picked to be simple and offer some quick ideas and suggestions to impact business in 2017. And the main question is, are B2B reps today prepared to present to today's new buyer, which I'll get into in a few minutes. The topic, my quote of we must learn how to better prepare our sales teams presenting solutions to customers, it was picked purposely because the amount of time a sales rep actually spends face-to-face or inside sales reps spend on the phone communicating with customers is roughly 25 to 30% of their time. So a lot of that other time is spent prospecting, preparing for presentations, and of course in long sales cycles of B2B is doing a lot of other things. Let's start at the end. A sales rep goes into an initial sales meeting early in the sales process. The important thing there is they want to make a positive impact on the customer or get a competitive edge. There's only two normal reactions to early sales meetings. One, customers say, thank you very much, we are just exploring vendor solutions for now. Or at the end, they say, good presentation, we will caucus as a group and contact you in 2 weeks. Or three, they might say something like, once we have finished all vendor presentations, we will select the 3 finalists and let you know. Now, if you notice, there isn't a negative word in here. Because in a B2B world, especially in the enterprise world, customers are very professional, they're very polite, and they don't want to say, to make the presenters feel bad. The other meeting, which has the smiles in it, what the sales rep really wants to hear are things like this at the end of the presentation. Very professional, unique presentation. You certainly know our industry. We're interested. Or, your case study example addressed 2 of our key business issues. Let's schedule another meeting now so we can get other people involved. Or 3, which is a great one, when can your team be available so we can insert our data to determine expected results for us? Well, obviously, 1 is not a good meeting, not a good outcome, even though there wasn't a negative word said. I always ask my sales reps after they made an important call, so how did it go? And based on this feedback, many of the sales reps said, it went well. There was no objections raised. They told me I gave a good presentation, and they're going to get back to me. And I'm thinking, kiss of death. They did not ask questions, and you didn't get into any specific details. The second one was very action-oriented. They said, we're interested. You hit on some of our key business issues. When can you come back so we can dig deeper? The difference between the two is very simple. The first rep, which is really traditional today, presented the customer overview, the company overview, products and features and benefits, and they assumed a second sales meeting where they could bring in their technical experts. The second one is really geared to today's buyer, which talks about the numbers early on in the presentation. So then they can bring in their sales team on a qualified opportunity. Aberdeen did a study, and they asked B2B enterprise sales reps this simple question. What do you need? What do sales reps say they need to have better customer meetings? And an overwhelming number of them, 52%, said they needed improved positioning, differentiation in messaging, and sales presentations. There's that word again, presentations, to tell a better, unique story. We recently attended a really great conference done by the Corporate Executive Board, commonly known as CEB, or the authors of the Challenge of Sale, at a sales and marketing summit with over 1,000 sales and marketing leaders. And I came out of there with 3 very vivid numbers that really painted the picture that's facing B2B enterprise sales reps today. One is customers are almost 60% through the sales process because they've done a lot of research and they spent a lot of learning time going over the great content that marketing has put up on websites, with white papers, on videos. Also, social media has a lot of information on vendors these days, and the analyst reports. So today's customer is much more empowered when sales reps are going into a first presentation, especially new customers, when a sales rep is starting their presentation. So customers really are setting a minimum acceptable threshold of performance by sales teams. They don't expect the sales teams to go over all the information that they learned by looking at their websites, looking at their references, maybe even calling some customers that they know who have the solution. So these early stage buyer meetings with sales teams are very critical. They're actually in win-lose situations. Again, because they only have 40% of the sales process time left. This was a really eye-opening statistic that the number of people involved in the diverse buying group that sales reps face have gone up to 6.8 people. And they're generally people from different organizations. That's a big increase from 5.4 in 2015. So as a result, these buyer committees really drive a process to the lowest common denominator consensus. What that means is they really try and stay away from their own individual concerns or their own individual what features or what's the price or things that do not benefit the overall corporate goal. And lowest common denominator means they're thinking at the 30,000 foot level. They're thinking increasing revenues, reduce discounts, mitigate risk from security breaches. They're really looking at the corporate goals that impact the business. So showing relevant content throughout this entire long sales cycle we experience in B2B is important that the rep shows early on and often. The last one is, and this was interesting, 40% of the buyers today are overwhelmed during the sales process. And how are they getting overwhelmed? Well, they're getting overwhelmed because the rep is very comfortable sending content out. They're very comfortable talking about their company. They're very comfortable talking about the industry. But it really creates a more difficult purchasing experience for the stakeholders because they're trying to deal with the business issues of their company. And what this drives is something CEB called purchase abandonment. I call it silence. And how many times has a sales rep gone to his boss and said, I don't understand, presentation was great, I sent them out the content, and they went silent on me. Or regret. And regret is sometimes you go into a pilot or even some initial adoption. This is very common in the cloud SaaS world today, and it doesn't adopt properly. People don't pick it up because people they're overwhelmed by the process. So what sellers do which is a real problem in today's digital world, is they still insist on following up, sending out white papers, videos, and a lot of collateral into the customer's inbox, which the other 4 or 5 vendors are probably doing the same thing. But these are really powerful statistics that came out of CEB that got everybody's attention. Let's talk about a really simple way to look at the sales process. Marketing today is spending millions of dollars generating leads for the sales organization and inquiries through a variety of sources. And they're doing a really good job, especially the ones using marketing automation systems. Those leads go into either an inside sales development rep or inside sales to follow up and set customer meetings for either themselves or for the field sales rep. And the reason that these meetings are so important is to generate qualified pipeline. Every B2B seller that I know is very comfortable with their pre-sales technical group. And they say, if I can just get an opportunity into that group, these people are absolutely terrific, and we win a lot of those deals. On the flip side of it, the pre-sales technical people say, please make sure these deals are qualified because I have limited bandwidth, and these are long sales cycles. So when you send in unqualified pipeline opportunities, what happens is, number one, they waste their time because 60% of deals that are forecasted by reps end up in no decision. And the second thing it does is it takes away their time from qualified opportunities. Richardson Training has a great quote. It says that sellers must bring relevant insights and ideas to create value into the buying process. Insights, ideas, and value. And the reason it's so important, Richardson goes on to say that sales teams that do this and prepare and deliver meetings of high value in the eyes of the customer, of course, win deals 4 times more than their peers. And it happens right here. It happens right in the middle with that interaction between the inside group and the field group to make sure that these meetings go off as if they're winning and losing type of propositions. You have to be able to create these insights with the customer so you can get some conversation and collaboration going. What is insight selling? BrainShark, which is a B2B video company for training, had the simplest ones that I found. And insight selling is the idea of bringing high degrees of expertise, industry expertise primarily, into the process to spark a buyer's interest. What I want to hear and what reps want to hear at the beginning of a presentation is the customer saying early on, hopefully in the first 5 minutes, this is interesting. The second point is to have insight selling done right. A sales team needs to come with marketplace-related intelligence. In other words, intelligence in my industry to tell me you understand my problems, that they can insert into the conversation. And notice the word conversation versus presentation. I always tell sales teams, if you are not getting questions or you're not starting some basic conversation within 8 to 10 minutes of your sales presentation in these early sales meetings, something is wrong. And 3, fuel the conversation. To fuel the conversation or getting it into a collaborative manner, sales reps need to come prepared to deliver facts, figures, and market or customer data that shows that you've created a positive outcome with other customers or other partners. Okay. Buyer's interest, develop conversation and collaboration, and show me in numbers real early of what your solution has done for other people. Translated means other customers in our industry, and in some cases, competitors. Forrester, this is my favorite slide. Forrester does a great job in making this point. They asked the question to over 400 senior level buyers. How often do you choose a vendor who has worked with you to turn a vision into a clear path to value? And this is in the early stage. So these early stage meetings are win or lose deals. And the answer came back, the first vendor to succeed in communicating a vision to executives wins the business 74% of the time, 3 out of 4 times. That's incredible. And just to prove it, Forrester did another survey that said, based on executive decision makers that requested meetings with salespeople or accepted meetings with salespeople, they asked them, are vendor salespeople prepared for your meetings in the following ways? The good news was that 60% said good marks on knowledgeable about their products and about their company. Almost 50% said very knowledgeable about my industry. So good marks there. The staggering news is that 8 out of 10 salespeople come into the meeting unprepared or to understand my issues and where they can help. And what they also want to see is they want relevant examples of case studies to share with me. And we'll talk about case studies quite a bit today. 8 out of 10 people. So this basically says 8 out of 10 people come to the meeting unprepared. Why? Because they're given the traditional corporate overview and talking about products and features. Marketing's answer is, and they're doing a really good job at this, we can deliver the right content at the right time to the right audience for the sales team. That's our job. And marketing does a good job of putting it on the website, and there's some good content repository systems that are out there that get the sales rep close to getting the right content. But this chart is self-explanatory. There's a lot of money being spent in companies over $1 billion to $100 million and even under $100 million creating content for the salespeople to find the right content at the right time to the right audience. The Serious Decisions goes on to say 70% of that content created by B2B marketing teams is never utilized. It's a number that the CFO doesn't want to see because these are staggering numbers. And the answer is why? Well, here's a typical sales rep that is basically looking for the right content, and sales is pushing back and saying, look, it isn't enough to just bring the right content at the right time to the right audience, because I can look at the PowerPoints that are out there. I can look at the case studies you're telling me that are relevant, the videos, the messaging, and I end up deferring to the corporate overview. And even when I find content, if I find a couple of case studies or videos, I have to package that into a 1-hour presentation. That's time that the sales rep doesn't have, and they end up giving up and just doing the corporate overview on the first call. Because almost 60% of a rep's time is not spent selling. It's spent doing other activities and hunting for the right selling content and resources. This needs to stop in today's world where we know the buyer expects our reps to get to the point within the first 10 minutes of the presentation. So what does a value proposition do? A value proposition answers the question that's on the mind of every person in that room, especially executive level people. So what do you do for your customers? And a value proposition deliver sales ready. Sales ready means download it from the cloud, or download it from your laptop, or download it from your CRM in a sales ready format that delivers insights and engage customers in conversation. A good value proposition will identify the key industry business drivers facing that customer, or the key pain points facing that customer that resonate with the audience. And they want to drive business goals and outcomes. Increase revenue, reduce cost, risk avoidance are 3 of the most common, but there's several others also. But at the beginning of the presentation, reps need to really nail this and talk about those key issues that are facing that industry customer. A better presentation is one that presents typical industry customer data. Not the exact customer necessarily, but typical industry example using a set of assumptions, data, and results. Examples would be increased revenue by 15% over 12 months, $10 million. Another one of my customers in your industry reduced manufacturing costs by 8% over 2 years, or $8 million. A security software company, customer says security software avoided any data breach, saving $3.8 million for the company, which is the average worldwide cost of a data breach these days. That's pretty powerful information. 3, the best value propositions do the first 2, plus they create a vision and process on the first call of how your company can achieve similar successful results. And we can do that, Mr. Customer, by inserting your data to determine economic value to you. We can revise the assumptions we used in our case study we picked and meet your specific situation. And together we can jointly develop a business case to determine feasibility. This is the process that a value proposition does, and it's all done in 1 or 2 screenshots, which minimizes flipping through PowerPoints, or it minimizes the amount of time you left for Q&A. The nice thing about it is marketing has done a fabulous job over the past 5 years, aided by these marketing automation companies, to put great content on their websites and in their content repositories. Videos, white papers, case studies, references, logos, etc. And B2B companies are rich with content. However, this content, which is readily accessible by marketing to get to sales, is not in a sales-ready presentation format for sales teams. You cannot put up a case study or a white paper and have a customer read that during a presentation. You can refer to it, but what's going on these days is the customer's inbox is being filled up, like I said before, with content from companies. And a value proposition with existing content is readily accepted and adopted by sales teams to create a unique differentiated presentation, which brings out the insights and the value of your solution in customer meetings consistently across the board for sales reps on a particular product or a particular solution for that industry. So the content is there. So where do we start? You start with selecting an offering that's important to your company. And just please don't take something that hasn't been selling because it's not competitive, whether it be a product or a solution or a service. Strategic to your revenue success, and it's maybe innovative versus competition or status quo. This could be for an existing product or a new planned product offering with the same characteristics. Second, case studies galore. 95% of the websites I've seen, B2B, have case studies, but they're sitting in this black hole of content that the reps can't use except to mail out. And it's developed by marketing. They can make it into a digital case study for existing products or targeting accounts for closing initial sales during these new product launches. And Brian will show you an example of this in a few minutes. Field test it with a small group of sales teams. Solicit the feedback, and you can revise the value propositions in an agile, iterative manner after you get the feedback. Once it's resolved, you can put it up in your repository or up in the cloud for your other sales reps to access. The impact on your sales organization is huge. This is the typical large B2B sales force. 200 sales reps in a division selling an average deal of $500,000. 80% of the reps are up and down the street, bag-carrying reps selling new and emerging accounts and your future strategic account reps. If each one of those deals is $500K, a single new qualified opportunity per rep per year could yield an additional $80 million of opportunity, and at nominal close rates of 20 to 30%, that's an additional up to $24 million of revenue. For the smaller companies, like your high-tech software companies, 50 sales reps, $200K, same opportunity. $8 million just with one new qualified opportunity per sales rep, or an additional $2.5 million on the top line. My last point is 3 ideas as you go into 2017 to consider, depending if things went right or things didn't go right. It's really important that you do something. Customers are empowered these days. So we need to provide sales teams with something, insight selling, value selling, new presentation tools to drive more successful customer meetings to increase the pipeline. There are dozens and dozens of sales enablement companies out there aggressively promoting training, consulting, and sales tools that can impact your business. Don't wait for your competition to force your hand. 2, start simple. Avoid tools that require change of behavior with salespeople. Sales reps spend their time in front of customers. They don't want to learn new methodologies that aren't going to impact their business that take 6 months to implement. Sales reps already know how to present case studies. Yet the reality is the sales teams are made up of baby boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials. The tool must be flexible enough to handle all 3 of these areas because they have different levels of expertise. So it needs to be a PowerPoint type presentation or a digital sales tool. You need to target and promote early success stories, and your adoption will go viral. And last, test some digital tools. The millennials are coming. I have one sitting here to my right who writes a great blog. And the millennials are a point-and-click generation. By 2020, over 50% of your sales team will be comprised of millennials. And I would guess at least 30 or 40% of your decision makers will be made up of millennials as well. So find some high digital quotient sales and pre-sales people in your organization. Test out some digital tools in the field. Training for this group will be minimal, as it's digital, and adoption will be fast. And the strategic advantage is we all need to get the best and the brightest millennials in our sales teams and our pre-sales organization. And when they come in and interview with you, if you're going over digital tools with them, that'll drive recruiting. You'll certainly retain the best millennials for your sales teams. Thank you. What I'm going to do now is ask Brian Hannon, our VP of Sales, to give you a customer example of what I've been speaking about.
Great. Thanks, Dick. So to sort of emphasize what Dick's been talking about, we tried to put together an example to really kind of highlight how we can help sales reps begin communicating value early in the sales cycle by hitting on key insights and key business drivers that their prospects and their customers want to talk about. So I'm going to jump to a browser here. So this is the Leverage Point website. What we decided to do is try to find some examples of case studies from companies that weren't clients of ours. And given that we're using GoToMeeting today, we kind of jumped and took a look at their website first. So they have a product called GoToAssist, which, as you can see here, is used by technology companies essentially to remotely address problems and provide support to their clients. So we felt like this was a natural place for us to start. And if we look at the GoToAssist website, very quickly you can identify case studies, and they have several good ones that we were able to take a look at. In fact, we grabbed the one that's on the front page here. We can see here it's a company called Everything Tech Limited. They're a company based in the UK. And this case study is very typical. It's a good case study, and it's very typical of what you would see with many B2B companies. In fact, you can see on the left-hand side here, you get a quick view of the key benefits that GoToAssist provides. So you'll see this format in many kind of case studies, and we've been seeing a lot of those over the past year, and so the format is familiar. But one thing that most people agree with is that salespeople don't feel comfortable presenting these text-based case studies. In fact, what they tend to do is email these either before or after a meeting and hope that their prospect or their customer has time or gets around to reading the case study. And I'm sure we'll all agree that that may not happen as much as we'd like. So the effort and the cost to put those together tends to go unused. So we took a look around their website. We grabbed a case study. We actually found some ROI information, and we decided to use that to put together our example today. And so we're back at our website, and when you log into Leverage Point, as a salesperson, you'll see a list of published value propositions. These have been published and essentially blessed by the marketing team. And a salesperson is able to quickly search through the value propositions using filters and using a generic search bar and find the one that might fit their upcoming meeting the best. We know which one we're going to, which is the one we prepared for this webinar today, which is the Everything Tech Limited case study for GoToAssist. So when we click on that, we're actually brought to the Leverage Point digital version. And so we can see here that there's a few different areas of the value proposition or digital case study, however you want to refer to it. And I'll touch on those briefly. So the top left-hand side, you'll see a window essentially that shows various charts and graphs that will help us tell the story of why GoToAssist is an excellent investment. And on the top right-hand side, you'll see information that matches the chart. So you'll actually see the numbers that correspond to the graphs that we're looking at. But probably the most important parts are the next two rows. The first row here, we see are the key assumptions. These are the assumptions that the marketing team want the salesperson to discuss and, in fact, to change if that's the case. If a prospect decides that they would like to begin customizing this case study to better match their situation, make sure I can spell here, then the salesperson can begin making changes to that, and those changes will reflect the conversation that they're actually having with the prospect. So as we see here, the key assumptions can be changed as well. I can change whether I'm looking at conservative or optimistic numbers. I can look at different metrics, whether I'm looking at the value or the cost on an annual basis, on a per call basis in this case. And maybe the prospect I'm talking to actually handles 90,000 calls per year versus 85,000. And as I make changes to the key assumptions, that information will ripple through and reflect in the value proposition as well. Now the final row here are actually the most important parts of the value proposition. These are the key insights or business drivers that you want your salesperson emphasizing during the conversation. So as I begin to make changes to the information, what I really want to do is emphasize that the cost of the GoToAssist software, according to the case study, was $17,000 for 12 users. The cost of doing nothing, the cost of maintaining the status quo, in this case was calculated at over $144,000. Now that's a fairly bold statement. What we can do is begin to drill into that and look at what are the key business drivers that essentially cause that additional cost or are the cause of that status quo cost. And we see there are 4 business drivers here, and those are reflected in the buttons below. So we can, as a salesperson, begin to drill in and discuss in more specifics our logic for why each of these business drivers may be important to this particular prospect. Or we may actually rule out 1 or 2 of the business drivers as well. And this is an important conversation to have. This is the conversation that our prospects actually want to have with us as well. So I can show them how we came up with the numbers, and in fact I can show the numbers and make changes to those if I think that's important. But as I begin to look through increased self-service, reducing costs because you're handling calls quicker, you're actually retaining more customers because of the automated and the better service, and you're reducing travel because you're handling more of the support remotely. And all of these business drivers go to the prospect's bottom line. It's helping them save money. And in fact, we can show a sort of traditional TCO chart which totals up our numbers, shows us the various conservative and optimistic scenarios, and actually will show us the ROI information as well. So 2 other things I'll point out before I hand this back. One is that we're able to embed the information that we're discussing directly into the value proposition as well. So here's our original case study. here's some of the ROI information that we referred to in the value proposition. We have the ability to show a video. That video may actually reflect directly what a prospect or a client talks about and maybe is a direct reference for us. And potentially a white paper, and this particular one touches on security of GoToAssist. So all this is information that we gleaned from their website. None of this was information we came up with ourselves. But now as a salesperson, I can do one of two things. Maybe I'm using this for prep, so I'm not using it in the meeting, but I'm using it to prepare. Or maybe I'm using it after the meeting to send a record of the conversation that I've had with the prospect. Either way, I can export this information to a PowerPoint presentation, which will reflect the conversation that I just had. And I'll show you a quick example of what that might look like. So here we have the PowerPoint that we would generate directly from the Leverage Point tool. And this PowerPoint essentially has the same data. And if we've made any changes, it will reflect the changes that we've made. And I can then send this to my prospect, and they can use this internally to hopefully champion my opportunity and help me get higher in the organization or get deeper into the sales cycle. So these are customizable, and we help you put these together as well. So that's a quick tour and a quick example of a value proposition, and I think most of the people on this call either have created or can quickly access case studies from their website, and we'd be happy to discuss them with you if that's something that you'd like to talk about. And so I will pass this back to Taylor.
Great, thanks, Brian. And I see we've had some great questions come so far. And like Brian mentioned, if you're interested in a 15-minute case study conversation, you can fill out the appropriate boxes in our exit survey, which will pop up when you leave the webinar. To answer the most popular question myself, yes, this webinar is recorded, and the slides and recording will be emailed to you within 2 business days. And now I'll bring back Dick to get started on Q&A. So Dick, first question for you. I find salespeople are reluctant to try new tools. How do you overcome this objection?
Yeah, we face this all the time, especially being a cloud company. Sales reps don't like change, but it's really important to take a step back and try and gear your engagement with reps and your adoption expectations with reps based on their skill set. Your sales force, as I mentioned, is made up of baby boomers, Gen Xers, and millennials. The baby boomer generation, which is mine, is pretty much fixed on PowerPoints. They want to be able to give these PowerPoints. We're very accustomed to giving PowerPoints. We've been taught that for 25 years, and we're comfortable with it. Forcing a digital tool on a vast majority of baby boomers probably isn't the right thing. Flip over to the millennials, give them a 50, 60-point PowerPoint presentation, and I think they're going to have a hard time getting through it. Digital is the world that they came up in. My 16-year-old granddaughter talks to me about how to use my iPhone because I'm only using 2% of the functionality of it. It's a point-and-click generation. They love these digital tools. In fact, I attended a Microsoft presentation not too long ago where they said that they did a survey and 50%, they have a 50% increase in revenue from their customers, from sales reps rather, if their customers who use their digital tools when it comes to revenue, so versus their peers. So a sales rep using digital has 50% more top line revenue than their other people in their sales organization. And by and large, they're digitally savvy people. The digital quotient today is very low. However, as I mentioned before, over the next 2 or 3 years, the digital sales tools are going to be the majority of sales tools being used. So the objection, you shouldn't have to come over the objection if you can say, I can give it to you in a PowerPoint, I can give you in a digital tool, or in some cases, we have customers doing a combination of both, where the rep uses the PowerPoint and the pre-sales folks use the digital tool.
Great, thanks. Next question. How can reps present a value proposition without the customer's exact data? Should reps do a data discovery step first?
Yeah, so I'll answer that. So the answer is we think not. We actually see this as kind of two ends of a spectrum. One end is the case study that we've been talking about, which is an example of another company, potentially in your industry, but it's very specific to that company. The other end of the spectrum is having a sales rep walk into a meeting expecting to ask 15, 20 questions to a prospect to gather data to then put together a business case. The latter is not going to happen. We see over and over again, with good intention, sales reps go in and expect that their questions will be answered, but prospects tend to answer a handful, and that's being polite, but after that they really want information. They want to understand why they should continue the meeting and continue talking with you. And our approach has been, if you go into a meeting with information and data that exists in something like a value proposition, and you admit up front that you realize this isn't their data, but you're interested in seeing how close this is or how they might differ from what you have here, prospects will tend to correct you and help you adjust the data so that the business case becomes more of a reflection of their situation than when you walked in the door. And that's exactly what you want to accomplish. You want to leave that meeting with an agreement between you and the prospect that the new information that you have, the changes that you've made, now better reflect their situation. And suddenly, you now have a business case that you both agree with, and hopefully they'll be willing to then take it forward and help you sell internally as a next step.
Great, thanks, Brian. And this is the last question we have from our audience today, so here it goes. I don't think our marketing team has enough data to completely quantify the value of our offerings. We have tried in the past and it never went anywhere. Any advice?
Yeah, let me take a crack at that. They don't have enough data for that specific customer, certainly. And a lot of times they'll send a sales rep in to ask 20 questions, but a customer's not really interested in giving out information, never mind confidential information, before they've had a chance to determine, is this a possible solution? Marketing does have the data, and where it is in case studies. And I always say, you really don't want to show exact data early on, like Brian said, because you could get tripped up pretty easily. Right at the beginning of the sales call, where you're trying to qualify the opportunity, using typical data from your case studies is more than enough. Now, in some case studies I've seen, they've sort of stopped at we increase or we decrease costs by 15%. That is better. That isn't as good as we decrease costs by 15%, and if the cost per kilowatt hour is this, then we can decrease it to $10 million a year, okay, if it's a generator. So that's better. However, it's worse that if you don't go in there at all with any action, momentum type words that show a customer that you're resonating with their business outcomes and their desires that they want for that solution to create. Just going in with non-numeric information is a killer for most early sales presentations. Again, your competition will do it. You have the information in your case studies and in your white papers. Get it, repurpose that content into a value proposition or a digital sales tool, and you'll see magic will happen.
Great, thank you, Dick. And that's it from us for today. So thank you all for taking the time to join us, and a special thank you to Dick and Brian for your insights. From all of us here at Leverage Point, have a wonderful rest of your holiday season and take care.